Welcome to Truth Seekers.
Hello, friends. Good morning and welcome to the Seiker Podcast on Service of Change Radio, where we challenge reality, question that which we've been taught, and hope to inspire a new direction of thought to bring about change. I'm your host, Dennis Nappy II, and I'm really excited to be here with you. This is my third podcast on Service of Change Radio, doing the Seiker Podcast. Obviously, those of you that have been following us hopefully listen to our Change Cast that we've been doing weekly for well over a year now between Joel, Lori, and myself. But the Seiker Podcast is a new endeavor along with Service of Change Radio, where small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. Really excited to do this show this morning. It is Friday, July 3rd, 2015, getting ready for the 4th of July holiday weekend. I'm going to talk a little bit about a news article or a research study that was recently published that Earth is facing its 6th mass extinction event. This is very serious news, and it's not getting the attention that it deserves, in my humble opinion. Also like to talk about the release of methane gas, which is on the rise. I'll talk briefly about that as well, which ties in, the extinction event. And lastly today, in following with our theme based on my research into, talking about my book, I Am Human, and into things unknown, things unexplained, and a potential predator that is feasting off of the energy of mankind. I have a sample from another author and experiencer that I'm going to get into, Mr. Carlos Castenada, who wrote several books, and I'm going to talk about one of his books, The Active Side of Infinity, today. So you want to definitely turn the volume up, sit comfortably, and just enjoy the ride as we go into some of this stuff. But again, I just want to briefly talk about the 4th of July holiday coming up. Being a veteran, 4th of July, even before I was a veteran, 4th of July has always been a holiday that's been special to me, mainly because I've enjoyed the barbecues and the time to see family and friends and celebrate and just, I guess, enjoy being an American. But, what is 4th of July? It's Independence Day. It's where we celebrate our freedom and the fact that we are an independent nation. But lately, over the past few years, we've seen that challenged quite a bit in the United States of America. And I think that, we've obviously, in my opinion, given up a lot of our rights as American citizens, and we've traded it for convenience. We blame politicians and corporations for all these changes that are coming in the world. But in reality, it's because we're funding them by going to, the giant stores and purchasing the products and moving out the middleman. What does that have to do with freedom? Well, you have freedom of choice. You don't have to buy those things. You can shop local. You can, do all these things that will actually have an impact on our freedom. And that's, I guess, my main point here is that as Americans, we often want to demand freedom. I have the right for this. I demand this. But freedom is more than just something that's given to you. Freedom is a responsibility. Independence is a responsibility. You are standing on your own. So if you want that, if you demand that, you need to work toward that. And that's the stuff we talk about at serviceofchange.com and on our blog and in our Change Casts. We talk about the small changes that people can make that can have that massive impact. But what those small changes are freedom. They're steps toward freedom. They empower you. A prime example, I always talk about my problems with, pharmaceutical companies. So what I have done to release myself from, I guess, their influence over me is I've been studying natural and herbal medicine. Now, I'm not saying that's the only course of action that one should take, but I have a sense of freedom when I'm sick or when I'm injured or, example, I burned myself in the lawnmower the other day. I had a 2nd-degree burn, bubbled up right away. I didn't go to the drugstore to buy some burn cream. I didn't go to the doctor. I immediately went into my own medicine cabinet and got some lavender oil, put about 3 drops on the burn and wrapped it in a Band-Aid, and it healed right up. The burning sensation stopped, and the blister went away in a matter of a couple of days. It didn't even really blister up, in all honesty. The skin just got a little tight. So to me, that's freedom, that knowledge. But it was a responsibility. It took time for me to learn alternatives. But it's me doing it. I'm not paying a doctor to do it. I'm not relying on somebody else to take care of me, and that's my point. So this weekend, I hope you think about what it is to be free. Free is not something that's given to you. It's independence. It's the ability to stand on your own, and that's work, and that's responsibility. We need to apply that in our everyday lives. So I'm going to move forward from there, and I want to draw our attention to an article that I put up on the serviceofchange.com website. Just go right to serviceofchange.com, and at the top you see our most recent blog posts, in a kind of a news cycle format. And there's an article titled, "Earth is facing its 6th mass extinction event, but we can stop it." And I firmly believe that. And the research that just came out, where is it? What's the source of it? I'm pulling up the source as well. But there was a new study that came out on June 19th, 2015, and that study indicates that we're currently facing our 6th mass extinction, and they're indicating that it may be mankind's fault. We may be the contributing factor to that, and it's pretty alarming. And I think that we need to be paying more attention to this. And again, this is not for those of you that know me, I'm not one to hit the panic button, and I'm not hitting the panic button because that's what mainstream does all the time. And people get all worked up over stuff. Oh, we got to save the planet, but nothing really happens from it other than maybe a few Facebook posts. What I'm trying to say is, we need to make a change. We need to make a change right now. There is a sense of urgency, but there does not need to be a sense of panic because we have options, and we don't have to rely on anybody else but ourselves. I'm tired of relying on some politician to make some law that's going to make something illegal so it's going to change the world. Do it yourself. It's minor things that you can do, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but listen to Service of Change's Changecast. Go to our website. There's ideas or suggestions on there. Email me. What are you doing that can make a difference? And I'm jumping ahead of myself because I get too excited. But in this article, I first referenced that many ancient cultures, to include the Maya, the Hopi, and the Aztec, they refer to this existence, our present time, as the 4th or the 5th world, depending on which culture you're talking about. Basically, they say that the mankind existence has been extinct or wiped out multiple times on this planet. The followers of the Bible, there's a talk, and other ancient cultures, there's talk of a great flood that destroyed most of mankind at one point. There's a lot of ancient creation myths that talk about a deluge, whatever that word is, that came in and just wiped everything out. And so these mass extinction events have happened in the past. Most people know about, the one theory that a comet just struck the Earth and completely wiped out the dinosaurs. There have been mass freezing events that have happened that have caused, mass extinctions on the planet as well. So my point is, this has happened. Researchers like Michael Cremo have uncovered artifacts indicating advanced societies and civilizations that go back, some of the studies point 10,000 years, 20,000 years, 30. Some of his research goes back hundreds of thousands of years and even 1,000,000 years. He's found, he hasn't found, but he references the discovery of, I think it was Texas, fossilized footprints of dinosaurs, with standing right next to them fossilized footprints of mankind. So there have been advanced societies here on the planet before, and they are now gone. And I say that to stress to you that this is possible. And now we have science, which everybody, in modern Western thought needs science to say that, yes, this is true before we start to buy into it. So where are we? I'm looking at an article, a website, Science Advances, sciencemag.org, and it's called Accelerated Modern Human-Induced Species Losses, Entering the Sixth Mass Extinction. Looks like the authors of this study, or the participants of this study, are Gerardo Ceballos, Paul R. Ehrlich, Anthony D. Barnosky, Andres Garcia, Robert M. Pringle, and Todd M. Palmer. Okay, and you can find this link actually if you go to serviceofchange.com right at the top, click on our article about extinction. And you know what I want to draw your attention to is it says the average rate of vertebrate species loss over the last century is up to 114 times higher than the background rate. The article continues, the number of species that have gone extinct in the last century would have taken, depending on the vertebrate taxon, between 800 and 10,000 years to disappear. So what this article is saying is that, and it goes into beyond just vertebrate species, it talks about multiple species, but it's saying that over a normal study, it takes a particular species so many years to go extinct. Now, over the last 100 years, they're looking at a similar species, and they're saying, well, that species has gone extinct at a rate that is a rate that is 114 times higher than what it would be if mankind was not on the planet. Okay, so it would take normally 800 to 10,000 years. We're doing it in 100 years. That is astonishing. But if you look at the rate of deforestation, you look at the pollution on this planet, it's terrible. We are out of control. So the second part of my heading here, my title, is that, well, there's hope. There's something we can do, something simple. Start recycling. Start bringing your own grocery bags to the store. Start making those small changes in your everyday life. Minimize your waste output. Carpool. Take a bike to work. Just find alternative means. Be smart about what you're buying. Find out which countries which companies are more green conscious. I always look at, the food that you eat. Where is it coming from? What kind of waste is it producing? There's a lot of research on the internet right now talking about the harm that our food industry is causing to the environment. Do a little bit of research. Take your time and make a change. It doesn't have to be this immediate, drastic, well, it should be immediate, but it doesn't have to be this drastic thing. Start small, but do something. There's a lot of stuff that we talk about on Service of Change, on our Changecast, and again, through our articles at serviceofchange.com. I encourage you to check them out. We have the power, and this study even says we still have a chance to change this, but we need to do it now. What's the alternative? In all honesty, the end for us. We are facing extinction level events. If we lose certain species of animals on this planet, that's it for humanity. We rely on them to basically be our food and to help nourish the food that we eat. So this is a call to action. Start making a difference, start making a change, do some more research. Just wanted to put this out here for you to check it out because it is of the utmost importance. But again, not a fear-mongering article that I have up here. It's one of, get informed, understand that this is possible. You're going to need to do a little bit more research on it, do a little bit more homework, and then make a plan. But we have to do something, and most importantly, but please share this. Share our stuff with other people and help spread the word, help get the content out there. Okay, so, and real quick, I want to just touch on an article from Unknown Country, which is Whitley Strieber's website, and I have a lot of respect for the research he does. He's real big on climate change, and he's actually the one responsible for the movie The Day After Tomorrow, where his research has uncovered that mass freezing events have happened, mass drastic climate change and pole shifts have happened very rapidly on the planet Earth and throughout history, much like in the movie The Day After Tomorrow. He has done that research. He has shown that that's happened, and he has an article up on his website. It's dated Sunday, June 28th, 2015, called Arctic Methane Release Gas Getting Worse, and it just talks about how now there's showing an increase in methane of 20 parts per billion over 1 year, an increase 2 to 3 times over the global average from the past 5 years. And readings from Barrow, Alaska, Summit, Greenland, and I can't even say this, Svalbard, Norway, all show similar trends. So an increase in methane, the article continues, methane has a greenhouse gas potential 29 times more potent than carbon dioxide over the span of a century. So basically what's happening is as the polar ice caps melt and the permafrost and the tundras are starting to thaw out, all that methane gas that's trapped underneath and trapped under the waters is being released. It's bubbling up. It's going up into the atmosphere. That is very dangerous for climate change, and that is what we're seeing happening. So, look at the crazy weather that we're having. Now, crazy weather has happened throughout time, but we're seeing a changing trend right now. Now, I'm not saying that's mankind induced. I think that there are natural cycles on the earth as well, and ebb and flow, and we may be contributing to that. I'm not sure. I'm not well versed in the climate change debate, but I know there is a lot of debate about it. But something to think about for you. Okay, so I want to move into on our discussion, if you've been following, the last two podcasts where I talked about my book, I Am Human, and We Are Not Who We Think We Are. It's available for a free download at servicechange.com/IamHuman. And I made it for free because I think this information is important. It's like having information that, in my opinion, is so important. You want everybody to know about it, but most people don't want to know about it. Most people dismiss it as, oh, that's ridiculous, that's not possible. But I'm putting stuff together, I'm putting research together, I'm making connections. I'm not the first and I'm not the only one who's done this. But I've just kind of come into this, and I don't think enough people are talking about it, that obviously there's more to humanity, more to our reality than we realize. In yesterday's podcast, the Seiker Podcast, I talked about, the research by the Institute of Heart Math that they're doing right now, a study that should be released this year about an actual connection between human energy, our electromagnetic output, and the energy of the earth and the energy of the sun, how it affects our mood, and really who we are. So check out, podcast number 2. And then I talked about the movies Monsters, Inc. yesterday. And that movie talks about how monsters sneak into kids' bedrooms to scare them and make them scream, and then they harness those screams, which are then used for energy to power their cities. Now, that's exactly what I talked about in I Am Human. Again, based on experiences in the first podcast, I talked about the experiences I've had where I'd wake up with sleep paralysis and night terrors and all sorts of crazy stuff. Sorry, my background music's playing here. Not time to end the show yet. But I wake up with sleep paralysis, night terrors, and came to a conclusion that I think that there's something being harvested from me. And I get into, in the new book that I'm writing, I Am Human, Food for the Archons, the specifics of those experiences. But I drew my own conclusion that, hey, I felt that there was some sort of energy being taken from me by whatever was standing in my room, standing over me. It sounds crazy, but then when my father died, I sensed that experience again around him. Having experienced it enough, you start to understand what it feels like. So I started to sense that as my father was dying, and that terrified me. It absolutely terrified me. And I started doing some research. And I found that, like I said, I'm not the only one who's experienced this. If I've experienced it, it's easy to say, you're nuts, dude. If somebody else and somebody else and somebody else has experienced it and they felt it was significant enough to write about it, well, then I think we have something there. And I think that something warrants investigation. So that's what I've been doing, and that's what I Am Human talks about. It's an intro to the greater research that I'm putting together, in hopes of making this a more popular discussion. Because if we can understand this, then we can do something about it. But if we just want to dismiss it and say, not possible, well then, yes, you will continue to be a victim. This is, again, I'm not a fan of fear-mongering. I may talk about some stuff that is scary, but I always try to have an option for you. I think, with awareness, comes options. So I want to talk today about Carlos Castenada. He was an author that published I think 6 or 7 books. I forget how many books he published. And his journey was into Mexico, where he was trying to study, he was an anthropologist. and he wanted to study the I believe it was the Yaqui Indians, and his interest was on peyote, which I believe is ayahuasca. It's a hallucinogenic plant compound. And he was really interested in understanding this plant. So he met a Mexican, a Yaqui Indian shaman, or a sorcerer, un brujo, which means witch or sorcerer in Spanish. His name was Don Juan Matus. And Don Juan took Carlos Castenada under his wing. And Carlos, like I said, it took him 6 or 7 books to explain this spiritual journey he was on with him. And what he showed him was how to understand the plant. And he changed his perception of what a plant is. He taught him to develop a respect and a relationship with the plant, with what he called mezcalito, which he believed and proved and showed had a conscious element to it. And through preparing this plant properly with some other compounds and ingesting it, they would have experiences where they'd encounter what we call supernatural or paranormal events and creatures and beings and an intelligence. So Castaneda goes through his books talking about his different experiences and the things that he's encountered in this. And this is key in what I've come to understand when I say there's more to us than we realize, and there's more to life than we realize. And I'm going to caveat for a minute and look at everything that's been made illegal right now, at least in the Western United States, and look at the taboo that's been put on hallucinogenic plants. Now, I've never experienced a hallucinogen, but I've been doing a lot of research lately on the power of these plants. How now there's research coming out how they're using these plants to treat, in controlled setting, obviously, to treat terminally ill patients and people with PTSD. It's helping people accept, their fate, really. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but they've been made illegal for so long. And I challenge it. It's because these plants are opening people up and giving them a glimpse of our greater reality. They're helping us to understand I am human and we're not who we think we are. And this book, his books really get into that. So his last book, The Active Side, is called The Active Side of Infinity. And it, I've heard this described as, he waited to the last book. He was building up to get to this last book to talk about what I'm going to get into tonight. And it's such an important, tonight, I said tonight, it's this morning. Sorry, I'm excited about this. What I'm going to get into right here. And it's towards the end of this book. So he was building towards this something that is very important. And I'm just going to read a quote of it. Now, remember, I came to this conclusion on my own. I was, I had experienced these terrifying events. Something comes in my room, and I said, I think they're taking energy from me. I wrote about it. I journaled about it. And then I witnessed my father die, and I had that same feeling, and I walked away from that going, from the religious standpoint, it almost seemed like a possession. Like, oh my gosh, something's messing with my father, and I felt that, more of that energy was being harvested. So I'm listening to a podcast one day, and somebody quotes this book that I'm holding. And it was a conversation that Castaneda was having with Don Juan. And they were experiencing some kind of vision at first. But then Don Juan, it says here, he stopped talking and looked at me. And I'm quoting from his book here. His pauses were perfectly placed. He always stopped talking when I was hanging by a thread. What did they discover, Don Juan? I asked. And Don Juan states, they discovered that we have a companion for life, he said, as clearly as he could. We have a predator that came from the depths of the cosmos and took over the rule of our lives. Human beings are its prisoners. The predator is our lord and master. It has rendered us docile, helpless. If we want to protest, it suppresses our protest. If we want to act independently, it demands that we don't do so. When I heard that, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, because I said to myself, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I've experienced, that people say, oh, you're nuts, that's impossible. I'm skipping ahead now. And he says, Castaneda asked, why has this predator taken over in the fashion that you're describing, Don Juan? I asked. There must be a logical explanation. There is an explanation, Don Juan replied, which is the simplest explanation in the world. They took over because we are food for them, and they squeeze us mercilessly because we are their sustenance. Just as we rear chickens in chicken coops, gallineros, the predators rear us in human coops, humaneros. Therefore, their food is always available to them. That was very powerful for me, because in my own essay, I Am Human, the analogy that I used based on my own intuition, years before I came across any of this, years before I even understood what my essay was about, I talked about chickens in chicken coops, and I ended my essay talking about that exact event. Let me see if I can grab the quote. Bear with me for 1 second. I had to reach my book here. And you can read, my version of it, my copy of I Am Human, for free online at servicechange.com/IamHuman. But at the very end, I say, my fear is not that there is no God up above. My fear is that what if we hold a greater purpose that is outside our capacity for understanding or perception of reality? What if we swim aimlessly in the fish tank we call Earth? What if we walk blindly through our coop of a planet that has conveniently penned us into an engineered reality we have come to accept? At times I feel as if I know the truth, yet I have no way of possibly explaining it. These thoughts, however, are not what truly scares me. It's the thoughts I haven't yet had that I can't possibly comprehend. Those are the ones that absolutely and completely terrify me. Well, I understand those thoughts now. I didn't at the time when I wrote this, but I gave the analogy of, chickens. What purpose do chickens serve in life, and what can they do about it? When I read The Active Side of Infinity, I feel that this is what my intuition was leading me to. Now, it took me probably 5 years to understand those thoughts that I was having, but I kept at it, and I don't want to say I figured it out, because I don't have all the answers. I don't even know if this is the answer, but it fits. And I have come across more research and more books and more authors and more experiencers who talk about this. There is something happening here. There's something that's been happening for a very long time. And does the world not make more sense when you look at it from the advantage of, number one, the common thought is, well, everything's okay, that's just human nature, and, from the religious standpoint, well, we're sinners, we're an imperfect being, and we have to earn our right to go to heaven, and this is just what happens. Well, yeah, okay, I get it, that's what people talk about all the time, but what if I sat there and said, well, actually, what if there is a being that can influence our actions, and even our thoughts to some degree? And I've talked about this in my last podcast, and I'll talk about this in more detail in future podcasts, but just bear with me. What if there's a being that can influence our thoughts and our actions, and that being's source of nourishment is human suffering? Does that not make more sense when you look at the wars, at all the people that are starving to death, at all the corruption that's going on in the world? That doesn't make any sense. Why are they watering down education and investing more money in prisons? Why is all this stuff happening when we're supposed to all be good and working to serve God? But if you look at it the other way, is what if all of that is a load of crap, and we are being manipulated to produce this level of energy that is nourishment for our own predator that's out there? I know that may be off the deep end for some of you, but again, do your homework, do your research, look into it, please. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. My email address is at serviceofchange.com. Just scroll to the bottom. You can contact me. Hit me up on the social media feeds at Service of Change on Twitter, or at Dennis Nappy II, Nappii. And you can even hit me up through the Facebook page, facebook.com/Service of Change. Would really like to hear your thoughts on this, and your thoughts on what you think of the Seiker Podcast so far. This is only our third event, so I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you get something out of it. And that's all the time that I have this morning. So I hope that you have a wonderful, happy, and safe holiday. I will be back Monday morning. I'm still working on some of the programming for this radio station. It's been a real pain in the butt, but little by little I'm figuring it out. I'm working on getting all this stuff back up on iTunes so you can listen that way as well. So again, I'm Dennis Nappy II. This has been the Seiker Podcast on Service of Change Radio. Small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. I encourage you to be that change. Never stop questioning, never stop learning, and keep an open mind. Thank
Welcome to Truth Seekers.